Hey everybody, I am going to begin the official week one lectures by lecturing to you from a conference room here on campus. I'm on the 6th floor of the Urban Center in a conference room with my iPhone set up on the table, and I'm going to be talking to you today about the three roles of the media. And I'm planning on probably doing a few more of the lectures, so you're going to see the same setup. I'm not always going to be in the same place this term, but right now I'm on campus and I'm looking out window at a pretty empty campus. So the topic of today's lecture is the three roles of the media, and the media plays an important role in a democratic society. Any society that isn't a small sort of contained village basically is going to be, to a certain extent, a mediated society. The media plays a role in connecting people to each other and in connecting people to the culture, to important institutions, to the broader world. In a democratic society, the media plays an extremely important role in the democratic system itself. And that's because democracy is a complicated concept. Democracy is not just majority rules. Democracy is not just power of the people. Both of those are elements of it. But what democracy is it is a system whereby the people rule themselves. And there are a number of different mechanisms and institutions that are involved in the people ruling themselves, and the media plays an important role in all of those. One of the most important roles that the media plays is in the important mechanism of elections. A democratic system, except in the smallest social unit where there can be direct democracy, is going to have at least some form of representative government. Some people are selected to go and make policy and make decisions and make the laws, decide the budget. Those people have more power than the other people who don't have those particular roles. And what connects those people's choices to the democratic system, to the power of the people, is the electoral system. In an election, people are making choices about others who they probably aren't going to meet. And they're making choices about other people and policies that they may not have personal experience about, they may not have very much information about, they may not even know what people think about those particular issues and policies. So the media plays an important role in connecting people to other people and in connecting people to information and ideas. The other important thing about a representative system is that there's a distinction between the people who are governed, even though that's everybody, and the government, the system of institutions that makes the laws, enforces the laws, judges the laws, sets the budget, taxes, does all of that stuff. And in a democratic system, the important thing is to make sure that the government serves the people rather than tyrannizes the people. And because there's a distinction between the citizenry and the rulers, there's always the possibility of tyranny. How do you make sure that this set of institutions, which is doing a very important job in society, establishing the laws, enforcing the laws, making sure that there are programs, there's taxation, all of that stuff, how do you make sure that that system serves the people in ways that they want it to, and doesn't serve them, it doesn't tyrannize them, and doesn't turn into a corrupt, inefficient, ineffective system? So in order to have a democratic system, there needs to be some kind of linkage between the people and their representatives, which happen through the electoral system. There needs to be some kind of connection between the people and the policy issues and the ideas and the programs and the laws that are being passed. And there needs to be some kind of mechanism for making sure that the system of government doesn't become tyrannical or ineffective or distant from what the people want it to do. The media plays an important role in all of those jobs. Now, the media is not the only institution that contributes to those things. There are other important institutions in our civil society that play a role, but media definitely plays a significant role. It's one of the reasons why freedom of the press is enshrined in the First Amendment, is not just to let the press say and do and show what it wants. That's an important personal freedom on the part of people who have the means to broadcast or publish or broadcast and publish basically. but it's also an important political freedom. It's not just a personal freedom, it's a political freedom because the political media plays such an important role. Now, today's lecture is called The Three Roles of the Media, and so I'm just going to go quickly through each of those roles, maybe not so quickly, but relatively quickly. In the following lectures for week 1 of this course, each of these roles is going to be applied and discussed in various domains of the experience of media that we have. So today's lecture really is more about democratic theory as it relates to the role of the media in a democratic society. The future lectures for this week are going to be specifically about the American political media in the past as it's developed into the present situation. And this is a domain that you have a lot of experience with. You're all consumers of various kinds of media, so that will all speak to your direct experience. You may or may not have experience thinking about the ideas of democratic theory, and that's what this lecture is going to do, and it's going to kind of set the backdrop for not only looking at, but assessing how well does the American political media fulfill the role that it's supposed to fulfill in a democratic society. So we need to know what those roles are and why those roles are important and what is happening when those roles are being fulfilled well. So the first role that the media plays is to provide information. This is an educational role. The media is an educational institution. And I should note right away, I should have said this earlier, but I should note it right now, is that I'll use the term media in this kind of singular sense, and we're used to thinking of it in a singular sense. But the media is really a very diverse, extraordinarily fragmented, highly competitive set of institutions. It's newspapers, radio stations, television stations, internet sites, podcasts, all of the forms of broadcast and print that get to us in some way or another. There are so many different media outlets with different purposes, different means of expression, different ownerships, all kinds of diversity. And it is easy to think of the media as this kind of singular, monolithic sort of thing, but it is not. So when I refer to it as having an educational role, it's a different type of educational role than the educational role of an educational institution, right? For example, our educational system, our public school educational system it's not a national monolith because we don't have a national public education system. We have a set of 50 separate state public education systems, which themselves are divided into local education systems. But what we do have is we have a singular education system in the sense that the education system, the K-12 system, is doing a particular job with a set of objectives and goals that are kind of singular. It's a public enterprise. The media is not a public enterprise. It is a competitive marketplace of various kinds of institutions, some of which are public, or at least publicly supported in the United States. We don't have actually any kind of publicly owned media. Other countries do, but we have publicly supported, and then we have only privately supported. But our media is a diverse set of competitive institutions and outlets within a broader marketplace. Yet in that marketplace, the idea is that all media outlets do play this educational role. What's the educational role? Well, from the point of view of a democratic system, it's to make sure that citizens who are going to be choosing their representatives, and in some cases with ballot measures, going to be directly choosing the policies that govern over them, that citizens have the information that they need to be able to make good decisions. A democracy is supposed to be the people ruling over themselves, and if you don't have good information to make choices, then you're not really ruling over yourself. You're just kind of being buffeted by whatever forces can control your decisions. So a vote that's uninformed, that comes from either lack of information or from misinformation, isn't really a choice that expresses the voice of the people or the will of the people. So information is key, right? If you as a person make a decision and you make that decision based on a lie that was told to you, right? Like you go to buy a car and the person tells you, yeah, the car has 10,000 miles and the oil's been changed every 1,000 miles, et cetera, and none of that's true if it actually has 150,000 miles and the oil has never been changed, and you proceed with your choice based on that information, then you're not really making a choice that expresses your will. You're being manipulated. So in order to avoid some form of either irrational choice or manipulated choice or just flat out uninformed choice, citizens have to have information to be able to assess the choices in front of them, to even be able to know what the choices are. You go to the ballot box, or you go to fill out your absentee ballot, and you see two names, and you get to choose one of those two names to hold a particular office. If you don't know anything about either of those names, if you don't know what those people stand for, if you don't know what they've said, what they've done, what their characters, what their policy positions are, how can you make a choice? You may as well just throw a dart at a wall or flip a coin. Information is key to good decisions of all kinds. Now, information by itself is not enough, and the media is not the only institution in our civil society responsible for providing information to citizens, but it is a crucial one. In addition to information, you need information processing skills. You need to be able to read, for one thing, or you need to be able to understand the words people are saying on a television or radio broadcast or a podcast. You need critical thinking skills. You need to be able to assess the reliability of information. You need synthesis skills to be able to take disparate pieces of information and put them together. You need to be able to relate abstract information to concrete specifics in your own life. There's all kinds of skills that are needed that that will help take that information and turn it into good decision making. So the informational role, the educational role of the media is part of a broader system of what a democratic society needs. You cannot have a citizenry that's choosing for itself if you don't have a literate citizenry that can actually read the information. And literacy goes beyond just reading. There's critical literacy, the ability to assess the difference between fact and opinion, to assess the reliability of different information that's being given to you, synthesis skills, application skills. There's an entire range of skills. One of the reasons why we have a public education system is to make sure that our citizens actually have those basic skills to be able to process information. Now, we also need broader information, like historical information, knowledge about what our political system looks like, that kind of background civics, basics of science, history. The media isn't responsible necessarily for providing any of those either. Again, that's what the education system does. What kind of information does the media provide? What educational role does the media have? It really is, the role is more specifically to the current time. The media's job is not to teach us critical thinking skills, or to give us historical background, or to give us a civics lesson. Its job is to provide us with the ongoing, up-to-date, relevant information about what's happening in the world, so that we can decide whether something's important or not, right? If we don't know that there is an increasing number of storms that have hit the country over the last couple decades, we don't know that maybe there's some kind of environmental problem that needs to be addressed. If we don't know that people are dying of coronavirus, then we don't know that there's some kind of healthcare issue to be dealt with, right? If all the information we have is what we see out the window of our house and what we experience in our community, we're not going to be able to say, well, these are important political issues. And also, if someone's running for office and we never meet them, we need to know who they are, what they stand for, what their character is, what their background is. So the information that the media provides us is up-to-date, relevant information so that we can make good decisions when we go to the ballot box. Now, the media obviously provides us with all kinds of other information, and it also provides us with entertainment that keeps us from just dying of boredom and from going crazy, and also just gets us to watch commercials and buy products. So there's all kinds of information that the media provides us. But the political media, which is the topic of this lecture and of this part of the course, as well as the central concern of democratic theory, the political media is providing us with a specific kind of information. Now, that could be a very diverse range of information. In fact, so many things are relevant. Even entertainment is relevant to what it is that citizens need to know in order to be able to make good decisions. So it's not as though you just need to read the politics section in order to be able to get the relevant information to be a good citizen. But that's the first role. The media provides information. The guiding ethic behind this role is objectivity. what we as citizens ideally want from the media, the political media, is objective information. Now, that's a tough thing because everything comes from a specific person or group of people, and so there's always going to be subjectivity tinged just by deciding to write one article versus another, right? If I decide to go into a community and ask people about their experiences with the police, that's different than if I go into a community and ask people their experiences with their neighbors. So there's always going to be subjectivity in the selection of, even just the selection of what story you want to tell. But the idea is that the goal is that the information that is presented is objective, is neutral, is useful to the person without containing choices already. That's what objectivity is. It provides citizens with the information they need to make choices without actually influencing those choices, except insofar as information influences a choice. And if you didn't know that there was a global pandemic, you wouldn't be able to say, well, healthcare is really important, or certain precautions are really important, or people who are not taking this seriously should not be voted back into office. So even objectively presented information is going to have an influence on people's choices, but the idea is that it is not manipulative, and that it doesn't essentially tell people who gather this information what they should make of it. It gives them the opportunity to make something of it themselves. Obviously, and again, I'll repeat this, there are other skills that are needed that are other educational institutions, particularly the public school system, as well as parents and peers, that need to be transmitted before this information, this objective information that the political media provides for us, can actually be translated into good decisions by the citizens. The second role that the media plays is a facilitating role, because a democratic society is not just people going to the ballot box and voting and then letting the people who win go off and make choices. It is also a society in which people are engaged in an ongoing debate and deliberation about the public good, and about important issues, and about the right and wrong policies, and about what makes us a people. There's all kinds of things that need to be discussed in order to have a healthy democratic society. People can't necessarily make good choices, even with a full range of information, if they don't also know what ideas are out there, what different perspectives there are, how people see things. Opinions are just as important to good decision making as information. And the media has a role in transmitting these opinions and in facilitating some kind of mediated debate. So the media has a role not only as an educator, but as creating a public forum where people can come out and say, here's what I believe is right, here's what I believe is wrong, here's what I believe is important, here's what I believe is unimportant. And other people can disagree with them, and they can put forth their reasons and have a debate. Citizens are not just voters, they are also deliberators and discussants. And a healthy democracy has a fair, free, and open electoral system, as well as a vigorous deliberation within the public forum. Some of those public forums are in person, but in a large society, anything larger than a village, much of that discussion is going to be mediated. Somebody publishes an opinion in a newspaper, and people read it and they're like, oh, that's a good viewpoint, I agree with that, or I don't like that, and then other people will publish a counter opinion, and that kind of debate is held. The media's role here is to facilitate that public forum, and the guiding value of a public forum is openness and inclusion. The idea here is that the media gives a chance for the expression of a wide range of opinions and perspectives so that citizens can see what other people think. They can have a choice among different ideas and values and policies and perspectives. If you don't get a wide range of expression of these things, you're not necessarily going to know what it is that you're choosing among, right? Like many people grow up in a family where there's a specific, very strong set of values, and you imbibe those values, and at a certain point in your life, you don't even necessarily know other people who have different values. But there are plenty of other different ways to be raised that are also equally valuable and good. Part of what needs to happen to have a fully mature citizenry is to have people have exposure to other people's ideas so that they can at least say, well, you know, I was raised this way with these values, and you have those values over there, and I know about those values now, and I still reject them and accept mine. If you don't know the different set of values that are available to people who had different upbringings, then you aren't really choosing the values that you have. You're basically, again, just being manipulated. In this case, you know, probably good-heartedly, hopefully good-heartedly, by your family. But in order to be able to make good choices, there needs to be this kind of vigorous, open, and inclusive debate. The public forum role is the second important role that the media plays, because people can't always get together and hear about all the different perspectives. It's one of the great things about reading books. And again, the political media is not the only institution in our civil society with a role to play in facilitating a public forum. Literature, culture are ways that we get ideas and values and perspectives that are not our own. When you watch a film about a person who's lived a completely different life than you have, and you see what their struggles are, and you can either say, well, I relate to those struggles, or wow, those are totally different than mine. I never even knew people struggled in this way. That also promotes a broader perspective. It's an important part of a democratic citizenry. So the political media doesn't necessarily do everything in creating an open and inclusive public forum. But again, it has a key role. Just like with the educational role, other institutions play an important role. It's particularly in inculcating the necessary literacy skills and critical thinking skills and synthesis skills that the political media can't be expected to do. So the media can't do everything. There are forms of the public forum that the media doesn't generate or create. But clearly, we can't get together with a lot of other people in one room and discuss and debate things. And so that's going to be a very mediated activity. The third role of the media connects with the need to make sure that the government doesn't become tyrannical or ineffective or drift away from actually serving what the people want it to serve. And that role is part of the checks and balances system. The media has an important role in ensuring the transparency of public officials. One of the things that happens when you elect people and send them off to a place that's not your home, to a state capital or a national capital that's far away from where you live, is you can't see what they're doing. And they're doing it in your name, with your money, making decisions that are going to impact rules that you have to follow, things you can and can't do. You can't see what they're doing directly. And those people, they don't want you to see. Even good-hearted people, everybody makes kind of mistakes. Even people who aren't criminals don't necessarily want to be seen in all of what their activities are. Even public officials who aren't corrupt or self-serving or hypocritical, they don't necessarily want to be seen all the time. But transparency is an incredibly important value in a democratic society. It's part of the checks and balances system. It's part of what keeps the government from becoming tyrannical, ineffective, and drifting from the will of the people. Now, definitely, it is not the only component. The media is not the only component in the checks and balances system. The electoral system is an important part of the checks and balances system. The people periodically get to re-up their choice about who gets to go make those crucial decisions. Also, the separation of powers and the official checks and balances built into the three branches of government, that's obviously also an important part of the checks and balances system. The legislature keeps an eye on the executive keeps an eye on the judiciary, etc., etc. The media allows the people to keep an eye on all of those so that public officials know that not only other public officials are watching them and checking their power, but the people are as well. And ultimately, the transparency role and the public forum role feeds back into the information role, because both of those allow voters to make good electoral decisions. But the idea that the media is giving you just directly information to allow you to make voting choices it's not just limited to that. But clearly, transparency is important, because if you see that public officials are not doing what you sent them to the Capitol to do, or they're actually breaking the law, then you're going to want to not vote for them in the future. And of course, also, if they're breaking the law, hopefully there are other internal checks and balances that are going to make sure that that person is brought to justice. Now, the checks and balances system tends to have to be very diverse, because checks break down, right? The judicial check on executive power isn't always functional. And so the media plays an important role in making sure that those affronts to justice that are perpetrated by public officials, even if they slip through the cracks of the official judicial set of checks, that the people can notice that. So the idea here is that the media actually plays an important role, not just in reporting and facilitating debate, but in actually aggressively going after the activities of public officials. Not going after in the sense of attacking, going after it in the sense of uncovering. Transparency is not automatic. Public officials, like private citizens, don't want all of their actions and choices and words to be seen. An aggressive, assertive political media is necessary to sort of push behind those closed curtains and expose what's going on. So the value there that's necessary to make the political media effectively do its job of ensuring transparency is assertiveness. So the political media has three important roles: providing information, facilitating debate, and ensuring transparency. And the values that come along with that are objectivity, openness and inclusion, and assertiveness and aggressiveness. Now, obviously those values all tie in together, right? You don't want an assertive, aggressive political media that's not objective. It's purely subjective and going after public officials out of a sense of a vendetta, of like, oh, we're gonna find out dirt on you because we don't like you. Assertiveness needs to be connected to objectivity. Openness and inclusion is connected to objectivity as well. These values all sort of go in concert. So that's the ideal of what a political media does and the requirements of what the political media does in a democratic society to serve essentially this very multifaceted role that is a shared set of roles, right? The political media shares its job with the education system, with communities where people can come together with public forums, with culture and society and the entertainment industry, with the other institutions of government, the checks and balances system. So the media is not alone in filling any of these three roles, but it really clearly is one of the crucial players in fulfilling all three of these roles. And without an open and objective and assertive political media, a democratic society is definitely going to be far less healthy than it would be if it had that kind of political media. Okay, that's our first lecture. I'm going to move on now to looking at the history of the American political media that up through the end of the 20th century that got us to the place we are now in the 21st century.